Hi, Greg Bornstein here, the CEO of GBQ Solutions. I'm so excited today to show you our newest product, our GBQ Solutions VDAT framework for validating file to file, file to database, and file governance. So let's get started. Our VDAT application can be opened by clicking on the icon here, and we get our main screen for our GBQ Solutions VDAT validator. The first item on the screen under our radio buttons here is validator. Underneath that we have the create mapping, the edit mapping, the edit runner, the check database, and the run validation finally. The validator is utilized in order to be able to verify what's in the file. It can also be used for file governance along with CI/CD tools such as Jenkins or CircleCI. If I hit proceed here, you see under our file validator we have choose layout at the top left. I click that and it allows me to open a layout. So I go to my desktop, I check my sample files, I go to my 837 files because we have an 837 available for our framework as well as many other CAN layouts, 835s, 834s, 837, 838XX formats for practically all of healthcare. We already have them available for this tool and can provide them to you. With that said, I'm going to choose the 837i layout file. So I click on that, and as you can see, after I've done so, all of my tokens for that particular file is available. I have the ISA fields, the GS fields, the NM1 fields, the CLM fields, and more. I can choose a single item by simply clicking on it and pushing it to the left, or I can hit my three dots and it chooses all of the available tokens and pulls them into my selected token list. Now I'm going to hit the sample file at the top. When I hit this button, it again opens up your file explorer. I go to my desktop and I choose from the sample files. I choose an 837 sample file. This is an actual 837 file. So now I click it and I open it, and it shows here that I have chosen sample files txt. Now that I have a sample file here and all of the associated tokens that I want to see in the file chosen, I can hit validate. When I do so, it brings up all of those same fields, but as you can see, all of the associated data for each iteration will be listed next to those fields. So just to show you, if I go to my sample file here, I go to my 837 where I was looking, and I look at that actual sample file that I chose, which is a real 837i sample file here. You can see it's in beautiful EDI format. I have ISA, and then I have 00, and then I have nothing in ISA02, which matches. I have 00, and then I have nothing in ISA04 here, and then I have ZZ, and then EANH 4227, and so on until I have the whole file completed. I can look at any one of the iterations. There only happens to be one iteration in this file, so that's all I have available to me. If I want to find something within a file or a particular iteration in the file, say you have a massive file size and you want to find something quickly, maybe I want to find the CLM01 field. So I go find in the list of tokens the CLM, as soon as I can find it here, 01 field. That's all I want to see. So I just hit apply. As you can see, it's going to show me for every iteration the CLM01 field, and here's the associated claim ID that is in that file. The other nice thing is we have the ability to use regular expressions. So if you choose a field here, you can even go further in looking and filtering by using regular expressions and applying here. With that said, I've concluded the portion of our validator. However, again, with Jenkins or Circle CI, you can utilize this with file governance to control files that you want to go through, say for the state of Maryland, or a specific value in a provider, etc. And you need to make sure that any file that comes through shows that you can do so. I'm going to go ahead and hit back to home here and move on to the next portion of our demo here. You can create mappings or you can edit existing mappings. I find it much easier if you edit an existing mapping because you're not starting from scratch. So for this demo's purposes, we're going to skip over creating a mapping document and go directly to editing mapping. Now, mapping in terms of file to file or file to database is essentially an editor for setting up which variable in the file is associated either with another file or with a database. So if I hit proceed here, you will see it ask me whether I want file to file or file to database. For our purposes, we're going to choose file to database. I go down here where it says mapping file, and I'm going to choose the second option here. And as you can see, it has all the fields from the A37i that you saw previously. It just loads the tokens. And if you go over here to the database field, you can see there's a whole slew of values, and you have associated queries. What you're doing in this mapping document is mapping a single field against a specific database location. So when you see quotes around something, that's an actual string in the file that it's looking for, because maybe you have a value that's not in the database and it's just a string in the file and you need to be able to verify it. In this case, we're verifying ISA, which should be associated with the ISA field in the file. And here you can see you have complex queries. You can create as complex a query as you want, get it as nailed down as you want so that you can format the query so it only brings back specific data that will match up with a field here. It also uses search tokens, which is our proprietary method, to find things within files. At real time, that search token will actually take the variable from the file and then put it in the query to match it up with a database. So if you have a claim ID or something of that nature, it will recognize a claim ID and it will bring data from that specific claim ID. The other thing that's nice about our editor here is the ability to work with multiple databases. So if I want to verify a field versus a specific database, I can do so. If I want to verify that same field against multiple databases, I can do that as well by hitting the add. And you can see it asks me, I can choose the token that I want to use. And I have two ISA fields here. I can choose another database for that if I want to. So with that said, that concludes our editing of mappings for this particular demonstration. I go back home. The edit runner here is for editing the variables associated from the admin side. The check database is where we choose our particular databases that can be used for our mapping documents. The databases acceptable to our product are Oracle, SQL Server, MySQL, Sybase, DB2, and many more, believe it or not. And if we do not have the database that works with your files, we will be happy to add it. So you can add a database, a host, a port, associated schema, username, and password, and test your connection, and then just save it down here, and it will save your database into our location. I go back home, and to run our file validator, this is the most exciting part because this is where you see the fruits of your labor. In running, you will be able to either validate a file-to-file transaction or a file-to-database or multiple databases. So I just go to this radio button for Run VDAT and I hit Proceed. In the Run VDAT, you have the ability to either run again file-to-file or file-to-database. For our demo, we're doing file-to-database. For the data worksheet, I'm going to use the one I edited earlier, which is the 837 mapping document. The database connection here is going to be VDAT MySQL. Now, if you choose that database, it can be overridden by the mapping document. If you have multiple databases in there, it will go by the file, or the mapping document that you created, rather. If you choose the number of iterations, you can either put it, if you put 0 in for the number of iterations, it will run the entire file no matter how many iterations you have. If you choose a single iteration, it'll run a single iteration. So for our purposes, we are going to run a single iteration. You then choose your LHS stands for left-hand side, sample. So I am going to choose the sample file that I'm going to run my validation against. So when I choose sample files here, and I go to A37, I go to sample files. This is a sample file that I showed you earlier that had the A37i. So now that I have a sample file, I have my file to database transaction, I have my associated mapping document, and all of the associated fields filled in, I can hit run. It takes a second to process, and then it shows you that it ran down here. It shows you what data ran. At the end of the report here, it says the number of iterations run, the total number of test cases passed, the number of test cases that failed. And then you can click on this blue link here, and it will actually bring up a nicer text layout of what occurred during the validation to see what compared and what passed, what failed. In this case, you have a lot of passing values from the file and the database. Left-hand side again stands for, or LHS rather, stands for left-hand side. And in that case, it's the file. Right-hand side, or RHS, is the database. So you can see these two match up. You can see in this particular value here, it matches up 0 and 0 from file to database, and you see the associated query that was run. And if you scroll down a little further here, I'm going to show you an actual failure. So you can see it actually picks up when there is a failure and when the values do not match. In this case, the left-hand side, or the file, is showing a P, while the database, for some reason, shows a T. So this is marked as a failure in our report, and it will be reported out to the user. I click OK, and that is, for the most part, our entire demonstration of how our file-to-file and file-to-database validators work with our GBQ Solutions VDAT framework. I would like to show you one more thing, though, because we also give you the ability to take a look at log files. So when I say log files, they're in HTML format. So if I open them up from my File Explorer here, and I go to the location of where these logs are located, I just want to give you an idea of what a log looks, or a HTML version of the report looks like. Looks much prettier than the version you just saw. And sometimes it takes a moment to come up because we're working on an Amazon cloud that's just slow. Bear with me just a second here as it pops open. Okay, again, it's taking its sweet time. But as you can see, the report has come up now. And I'm going to enlarge it here real quick. And it shows all the pass and fails for a particular run. In every single iteration, it shows you the iteration run, the file run, and the database values. You can go through and you can see all the passing values in here. And this looks like an 837 of some sort. And it shows all the values associated with it. And for some reason, this line failed because the file shows a P and the database shows a T. And if you want to be able to filter down and see what your passing values are, you can do so here, and you see just passing values, or you can choose to see just the failures. In this case, there's only one failure in this file. So now you have gotten the full breadth of what the GBQ Solutions VDAT framework is capable of. I want to thank you for joining our presentation for today, and I look forward to giving you many more demos and working with you. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful day.